5 years ago, we bought this fixer-upper in need of a major facelift. Fast forward to today, we've redesigned and renovated every major part of this house. And with only a few small rooms remaining, I really wanted to do something truly special with this tiny laundry room, which is now fully renovated, but this video is going to be about taking you through this project. This room was pretty dysfunctional, and it was very ugly. It looked something like this. And now it's literally the trendiest little room in the house. So stick around, because I'm going to show you how I radically overhauled this space, changed the whole layout, built some custom cabinets from scratch, and even milled my own shiplap and trim. It's going to be epic. Making this tiny laundry room more functional meant completely overhauling the layout. Step 1, removing the old flooring. You know, there's people out there that like demo work. I am not one of those people. The core change was to move all the plumbing to the back wall, correcting the original design flaw. The old wash machine was here, and now it's going to be stackable, so it's going in the complete opposite corner, so this really just doesn't work. So I have to leave a junction box that's going to be inside the laundry wash tub cabinet here. As long as it's accessible and serviceable, there's nothing wrong with a good old junction box. Unfortunately, we've got our light switches here, and there's going to be a cabinet going in front of it. And this isn't just for these two light switches. Kind of act like a junction box for a bunch of other stuff. So very, very difficult to move. So this is going to have to remain a junction box with an access panel inside our cabinet.
My name is Cohen. This is my dad.
Can we see each other?
That's my daddy. Are you ready?
There you go. There you go. Good. However, I'm just going to make sure I'm not hitting anything. So phone here, and look and see what we can find. After doing all this electrical work and getting the switches moved, it was time to rough in some pot lights. All right, the prep work is done. The question is, do I put the old drywall back up or do I buy all new drywall? The plan is to cover all these walls with vertical shiplap. I'll be securing the boards directly to the drywall with a strong adhesive. With this drywall surface never to be seen again, there was just no reason not to reuse the existing drywall and save myself about 30 bucks. I know it's not pretty, but it's solid, it's straight, and it's flat. And it's all gonna get covered with shiplap anyway. So let's move on. We have a bit of a situation here. When we did the floor, we started at this end of the house and we worked our way back. What that means is that we have a groove exposed here as opposed to a tongue. I'm gonna slice a bit of the piece off here, and I'm gonna use the router table to create a tongue on both ends so that we can flip the pattern around and continue going the opposite way with the floor. Let's head to my workshop and let's see what we can do. Pretty cool. Just a little too sharp at the moment, so I have to just round off the edge, kind of like the factory edge here. Cool. The factory edge here, and the edge that we just made. Well, I am on my way to buy some plywood today. Let's go check it out. Let's go. I got my plywood home, so it's time to start cutting it and making some cabinets. I made myself a cut sheet this morning based on my design, which is mostly in my head. I ended up going with 5/8. The thickness is metric. So if you're buying 3/4, you're really getting 18 millimeter. If you're buying 5/8 like I did, you're getting 15 millimeter. So check this. Well, that was less than ideal. Let's start cutting. I constructed each cabinet box by using precision joinery, starting by cutting dados into the side panels to create a secure sliding joint for the top and bottom pieces. My preferred method for assembling these robust cabinet boxes is a combination of durable wood glue and 1.5" staples. Further increasing the strength, I milled a rabbet on the back of each panel. This allowed a full thickness backer board to recess seamlessly into the 4 surrounding boards. All right, let's talk face frames. It's time to make our face frames for these cabinets. Most people use a softer wood. However, I've got some hard maple here. And the reason I'm using hard maple is because I have access to it. This is actually from a tree that my dad cut on his property. I have a sawmill. My dad has a kiln. Whenever a tree's cut down, we make lumber out of it. And then when we've got a project going on, well, we've got some stock. This would be very expensive to make your face frames out of hard maple. But for me, it's the least expensive option because that's what is available to me. That said, this does present a few more complications. Most people use pocket screws to put together face frames, and that is a good option. From what I see out there, usually when people are using pocket screws, they're building their face frames out of poplar or soft maple. And the thing is, when you drill your hole with your pocket screw jig, you don't end up getting a pilot into the second piece. You kind of just clamp it together, put your screw in, and the screw makes its own hole into the second piece. Hardwood stock, like sugar maple or hard maple as we have here, you need a pilot hole in the second piece. So then I'm gonna be using this extra long 1/8 of an inch bit here so that when I clamp everything, I can drill a pilot hole into the second piece without my drill chuck rubbing on the first piece. The other thing is that I'm using 1-inch stock. There's a good reason for that. And the reason I'm using 1-inch stock is because of that one thin cabinet on the end. With 1-inch stock, there's only gonna be a 6-inch opening to get your brooms and things like that we might wanna store in there. So if I was using 1.5-inch stock, which is more common for face frames, that extra 1/2 inch on both sides would rob you 1 more inch of opening to get your stuff in there. So I decided to make all of the cabinets with 1-inch face frames. Getting back to pocket screws, normally you put 2, but 1-inch stock is really a little too thin to put 2 pocket screws next to each other, so I'm going with 1 pocket screw. Problem with 1 pocket screw is your piece tend to be able to twist. All this to say that every situation is different. You've got to experiment a little bit with the material you're using and make a decision based on your situation. In this case, I'm going to be using a combination of 1 pocket screw, some 23 gauge pins, as well as some wood glue. And all together, everything should stay nice and tight until the glue dries and should give us a very solid face frame. Now that I'm done making the frames, it's time to give them a quick sand, paint them, attach them to the cabinet boxes, and then we'll install these cabinets. I'm gonna be making the cabinet doors after I get these cabinet boxes installed. When you're working in a small space like this, you always gotta be strategic. Try to get as much out as possible before you move on to the next phase. No matter how much you plan, sometimes mistakes happen. So in this particular case, I was expecting to put some trim here to kind of cover up the gap. In the end, I determined that a simpler look would be best, but I don't want to see those pocket holes that I left exposed. And I really don't feel like pulling these washing machines back out. So gotta kind of do my best to fix this in place. And just like that, it's time to make some doors. So I'm going to be using the same material that I used on the face frames. It's this nice hardwood maple, except this time we're going to go with 2 inches. I did a bunch of math this morning to figure out what size my rails are going to be, because remember, you make a rail and you cut the tenon out on the end, so you got to figure out what length you need to start with so that you end up with the right space between your styles of your doors. We are going to use MDF for the panel inside, since these are going to be painted. I personally do not like MDF, but it's hard to deny sometimes it is the best product for the job. It does not expand and contract, so therefore we can glue the panel inside the door and paint it and make everything nice and neat. So I ran some trial runs this morning, making some frames and making some doors out of some scrap pieces. I just don't do doors very often, and I've never even used these bits before. So I needed to kind of understand where the gaps are, the overlays with the hinges I bought, and really fine tune what size I want these doors and come up with the formulas to calculate essentially each style and each rail and what length. So I think I've got everything pretty much dialed in. So it's time to get started. Let's make some doors. I have to say, I'm super pleased with how these doors are turning out. So everywhere where stiles and rails connected together, I sanded that super smooth, and on the face as well. So these have turned out to be super nice and smooth and just really slick looking doors. I am a little bit heartbroken that some of this super nice maple, hard maple green is getting painted, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. You know what I've found? When you're spraying cabinets or whatever it is, and you're trying to achieve a high quality paint job, you got a place to hang your gun and to set up your paint. You've got everything cleaned up so you're not going to get dust in your work. You got a place to let everything hang and dry or whatever it is that you're doing. And you know, ideally you'd have a shop where everything is controlled. There's air filtration and all that kind of stuff. In this particular case, I'm doing everything out of my garage. So we just got to take every step possible to try to achieve the best results. I do all kinds of work in this garage, so there's literally dust in every crevice. Everywhere you look is impossible to remove it all. So it was important to me to hang these doors, because if I put them on a flat surface, inevitably any little dust in the air will settle on that surface, and then when I go spray with my gun, air from my spray gun will lift up that dust and it will go onto my paint. We're going to be making the center of my garage as dust-free as possible. We're going to be hanging the doors in the air. You're going to try to think and do the best that you can with what you've got, and I'm fairly certain we're going to be able to achieve some fairly good results. I did the two first coats in one shot, but pretty typical when you're painting raw wood, and especially MDF, you got to give it a quick scuff and then do a final coat, because the little hairs and fibers all lift up, especially MDF, to be honest. We're going to come back and do another coat, maybe one or two more coats on the final touch-up. Here's where we're at. We're done building the cabinets, we've installed them, they're ready to go. It's time to move on. Typically, I'm usually a big fan of quartz countertops, but in this case, the footprint of what we need is really small. It's a little overkill to go and get custom countertops made for this. So I've put a lot of thought into making something out of wood. Now, wood's got a lot of drawbacks when it comes to countertops. It expands and contracts quite a bit. Only in my case, I think I have a bit of a benefit from only needing a couple inches all around the sink. So instead of basically building a big butcher block and then cutting out a hole for the sink, I think I can get away with having wood grain going opposite directions for the sides and the front to back. So we're going to be doing something a little bit unconventional. Stay with me for a second here. This here is black locust. It doesn't even grow around here. I happened to get a couple of pieces of wood that were actually destined for firewood. That's why they were already cut. And I thought it was cool because to me it's an exotic wood. It doesn't grow here. We're too far north. So instead of scrapping it, because I thought it was cool, I sliced up these slabs on my sawmill and I just kept them. I thought maybe one day we'll have a use for it. It's hard to work. It's got a blunting effects on saw blades. I'm making something so simple here that I think it's going to work just fine. It has not been kiln dried. So in this case, believe it or not, I'm going to dry this in my oven. I can fit 28 or 29 inches diagonally inside my oven. I've often dried wood in the oven, often for experiments. You will get all kinds of cracks and warping and stuff like that in the oven. But so what? So what we're going to do is we're going to slice a few sticks out of these slabs here. I'm going to dry them all in the oven. And then even if they warp or they crack, we're going to carve out the best piece out of them. We're going to just make a frame. So I am hoping that we can use this very rustic piece of wood to make a very elegant and stylish countertop around the sink. Is this a stupid idea? Yes. I like having crazy ideas and doing crazy things, so here it goes. Let's see how it works out. Here's our black locust. It's all dry, it's all straight, it's all flat. I dried it during the day, and then I waited a couple of days, and then I dried it another day again, and then I waited a couple of days. So kind of did this over a week or two. So super dense wood, 3-inch thick, very, very dense. Very, very dense and hard. Super cool stuff, super cool stuff. Sounds like a hack to dry stuff in the oven. The reality is it does a great job at drying the wood fast. What it also does, however, is tends to warp and crack and check the wood and all that kind of stuff. You know, it did warp a little bit, but I made sure that it was thick enough that I could shave off whatever I needed to get it back down to something straight and still have enough to play with. So, pretty cool. I mean, this is literally slices of a log that was gonna go to firewood. So, let's make something out of this. See? Lap joints. These ones are pretty easy to do because you go right through. Easy. The front had to stay intact on this one because that's the part that you're going to see. So I couldn't go all the way through. So I did it with the router. It's a little bit messy, but nobody's ever going to see it. I decided to try Osmo Polyex. These hard wax oils are all the rage right now. I have never tried any of them before. There's Polyex, Rubio Monocoat, Odie's Oil. These are all examples of these new hard wax oils that everybody's been liking. Now what I think I'm gonna like about them is the beautiful finish that you end up with. You get something that feels like the texture of wood as opposed to the texture of a layer of plastic on top of it, which is what you get with polyurethane. And this is the Polyex 3051 Raw. Raw wood, or raw, I think it's called. It's supposed to give you the look of wood that has no finish on it. So it will dry to a matte finish. And you know, the interesting thing is that I was actually planning to make this black. Black locust kind of has this yellow tinge to it. And at first I didn't really like it. Now when I test fitted it, the gold knobs kind of complemented this color. We're gonna see what this looks like. Sometimes you gotta take a little risk and see how it turns out. A rather unique detail of this house is that every piece of trim is fastened with extreme care. The builders used countersunk 3-inch construction screws every 16 inches, covering each one with a wood plug. The downside to this seemingly meticulous approach to fastening trim is that any simple job requiring the trim to be removed will inevitably lead to its destruction. Next, I installed a few pieces of backer board wherever there would end up being coat hooks. It's finally time to make all our trim and all our shiplap. For the shiplap, I'll be making it with 1/2-inch MDF and using my router table to mill the edges. You haven't guessed it, we're doing a coffered ceiling in this laundry room. Because we can. It just looks super cool, super custom. What the heck? Thought I heard somebody coming. It's cold outside. Does Mom even know you're out here?
I secretly went out.
You secretly went out. I'm going for something a little bit unique here, as the baseboard is going to be flush with the rest of the vertical shiplap, which is going to, and there's going to be a horizontal gap in between the shiplap and the baseboard. So I think it's going to be cool, but since this is going to be my base for the shiplap, it's just absolutely important that the baseboard in this particular case, unlike in most situations, it has to be level. Everything from this point forward, if I start with a level baseboard, everything else will be level as I keep going up the wall into the ceiling. The baseboard will fit perfectly on the floor, and the top of the baseboard will be perfectly level, and it will be at the exact same height as this baseboard over here. Not something you need to typically do, but in this case, since the entire wall is being built off of the baseboard, each plank is going to be the exact same height and end up at the same spot on the ceiling. This is a little something different that I'm doing here, so this level of detail is required. Hello, it is time to install the coffered ceiling. Oh, here's a better explanation of what I was doing here. So I installed the first box. If you can see, there's a huge gap over here. That's because the ceiling is not flat. Ceilings are never flat. So if we look, this here was the lowest part on the whole ceiling. I had determined that before. So we're flat here. Everything else, in theory, on the rest of the ceiling is going to have a gap. And that's okay, because there's going to be a trim that goes and covers this. Now, if we look over here, this is what I was doing earlier. This has ended up level with this. Okay, if we did everything correctly, that's going to be perfectly level. The strategy here is to install the trim with adhesive, and I'm just using this pin nailer, these tiny little pins that you barely see. It's not like brad nails that have a head and there's an actual hole you got to fill after. These are virtually unnoticeable, and especially if you're going to paint on top of them, you'll never see them. Really cool, not very strong, but definitely strong enough to hold the piece while the adhesive dries. So this is an STP adhesive as opposed to a polyurethane like a PL adhesive. I like PL. This stuff is just much more affordable, and I've been enjoying it. Look, I've come to the realization that I think I need to move these pot lights. I had a good idea. In this room, it doesn't work.
My initial strategy was to divide the ceiling into equal squares and center a pot light within each one. The plan was to let the cabinets encroach into those squares as needed, keeping the lights centered to the original grid rather than the new shape of the space. This approach might work well in a large room where more symmetry could be maintained. However, in this tiny ceiling, the results simply looked off balance and just wrong.
Yeah.
I have the last one you need.
Okay. Give it to me. What a project, right? A tiny room that looked like a weekend job. I started in January and now it's the spring and I'm finally done. You know what though? This was an awesome project and probably one of my favorite ones that I've ever done. Anyway, I absolutely love how it turned out. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.